Okay, welcome to my latest Stampscapes experiment. We're stamping with the VersaFine Clair black on top of this pearl printable, printer paper. All right, I'm stamping out the covered bridge and the sedge filler here to make this meadow and background hills. Now we're going in with the maple tree tops to fill in that extra space. A little bit of tree cluster to the left and right bottom corners to create a little bit of depth and foreground. Going in here with the oak branch to create this fall colored overhang foreground. Now here's the thing that this video is really about. I found out that you can go directly onto this particular pearl paper with colored pencils. I didn't think it would work. I tried it out a little bit on this test print, and it seemed to apply to this type of surface just fine, okay? Now, I've tried colored pencils on other types of printer paper, and it just didn't apply. It was too sealed off. It was too maybe glossy. I'm not sure if it's the emulsion coating on those particular papers, but on this one, I don't know. I guess there was enough tooth to it, which colored pencils require. They have to grab onto something with that wax. And I don't know, it seemed to go on just fine. So what I'm trying in this video is to see how much I could build up in terms of number of layers with the colored pencils. You know, with colored pencils, if you get a little bit too built up, you know, you're applying like this wax type medium on top of wax, and it just doesn't transfer very well. But on this one, as I found out, you can go pretty thick with it. At some point in time, you almost start to achieve that super saturation, but it depends on the how soft your pencils are naturally. The harder they are, I don't think you can get quite as much of a buildup. But here what I'm doing is I'm working through this value scheme of each color scheme that I'm working with. So I plan on doing that meadow area in greens, the trees in that fall colored, full color, I don't know, oranges, reds, yellow color scheme, and the covered bridge is going to be in browns, but there are some colors that kind of cross over into each other's color schemes just to create some continuity. If you color everything completely different, it can look okay, but you can get a little bit more color harmony if you have some commonality between the different zones. So in this case, you can bring in some browns into each zone, such as the covered bridge, and the road might be predominantly brown, but you have some of those browns in the greens and also in the trees. With colored pencils, I work from light to dark, okay? So when I'm working in the trees, I'm going with the yellows, and then into the oranges, and then into the reds. But not only that, I'm applying kind of a lighter application of each of the lighter tones to get kind of a more muted look. And so I can kind of see things develop slowly. I don't go with a real heavy-handed application of the lighter colors right off the bat, because also if I did that, I don't think I would be able to apply much of the darker tones because the paper is already going to be reasonably sealed. Okay, going on with the red here, I found out that one of my red pencils was a little bit, it seems softer than the orange color. So not all colors within a certain brand or range are going to be the same softness, okay? By and large, you might get some differences between different brands. By and large, one type of pencil might be harder than another brand, but you'll also find out that within the lines or brands, you'll have different types of softnesses between different colors. Okay, now if there's anything that you get from this video, notice how kind of anemic the color scheme is looking right now, okay? Things don't kind of get, I don't know, a wider range of values and intensities and I don't know, just an overall kind of more exciting surface right off the bat. I build up to it, and when I do it that way, I can see things develop, and I can develop things kind of in a slower I don't know, progression. That way I can have more control over it. Okay, now here's a blue that I really liked in here. Now see, this is an idea of using that same color in different areas. Okay, so see that there's that blue in the water, but now I'm applying some of this blue. I don't know if you can see it there, but there's a slight tinge of that blue in this grassy area now. You know, blue over green isn't going to make it look blue, but you can get this little tinge of that blueness or that hue in those different areas. I even use it on the road, and here I use it a little bit on the rooftop here, just for that color continuity through there. It doesn't stand out at like, oh my gosh, there's a blue roof, but just having a little bit of a touch of it in there kind of creates that, like I said, color harmony or continuity between the different types of objects. Okay, switching off to paint pens here. You can go back with some colored pencils if you want to, but I'm starting to go in here. I wanted to bring in some brightness into the scene, so the acrylic paint pens really apply nicely over just about anything that you want to use them on. So you can even use them on things like glass or rocks or something like that. So applying over the top of this waxy colored pencil is no problem. And I can get a stronger brightness through the use of the paint pens. Okay, now here's another part of the color continuity. I'm going and adding in these little dots of red into my green areas. I do a little scribble off there as I think I was kind of getting some of that waxy colored pencil into my tip there, so you just kind of scribble it off. And also in my trees, I wanted a brighter kind of color scheme in those areas, a little bit more excitement in those fall tones. Applying some of this paint pen up into my oak branch that I stamped out in reds and oranges and some browns, but this gives it a little bit more brightness in that foreground element. Okay, adding in some greens with the paint pen. This is a little bit of a darker green, so I'm adding that in the shadow areas. Okay, now with paint pens I usually work from darker colors to lighter colors because they are more opaque. We might think of the colored pencils as kind of opaque, but they're a little bit more translucent. You can see the colors that you apply underneath layers of colored pencils, unless you go with a super strong application of it. But you know, for the most part, colored pencils, I see it as, you know, somewhat translucent, you know, about midway in between transparent and opaque. With the pens, it's more like a, I don't know, like a 70% opaque. Okay, now, as we can see, the covered bridge here should be kind of an, I don't know if it has to be an equal star of the scene, but it is a focal point, so we have to bring up the intensity and contrast and just overall presence of the bridge with a little bit more shading work and ink or colored pencils on it. It's still a little bit opaque. There's a lot of glare coming off of it because I haven't used any paint pen work on it. Here I'm using the white now, going all the way from, you know, the darker tones, the darker greens, the darker reds and oranges, and ending up with the lightest color of the pens, which is always going to be white, and that gives everything kind of a shimmery type of feel. I'm using it in the highlighted regions of the different objects and zones. And see, it's kind of getting a little bit more exciting looking, you know, when you bring in that kind of extreme contrast. All right, going into the background trees as well, like that, adding a little bit of a, kind of white trunks into those, into that foliage back there, blending it out with a little bit more orange. Going in now with a softer touch with the white pigment ink right over the top of everything. Well, not everything, but in different zones, any part where I've added, or I've retained some of the lightness of that pearl paper, I'm going in and kind of accentuating it with a little bit more of this kind of misty type of effect with the white pigment ink on a 100% cotton ball. Little quote stamp that I've left room for. adding in a little bit more foreground and depth with the reeds large, with the VersaFine clear. Luckily it's stamped over the top of that wax just fine. And that is the card there. I'm really having fun kind of doing some experiments and finding out what this pearl paper can take. If you like this video, hope you like, share, and subscribe, and comment. And thanks as always for tuning into the Stampscapes channel.